So welcome, Elaine and Kim, again to the Zoom room officially. Really good chat. Just reminding us of the principles behind this teaching of A Course in Miracles and how they apply to these practical life situations you both shared. Hopefully that was helpful. So let's
Thank
do some
you.
practice. Have a look at today's daily quote. It's all about the self and really giving us the answer to all of our problems. Very, very profound. What is the single answer to every single problem you have had or ever will have? That should be an amazing revelation. Actually, it's just common sense in course terms, but most people don't realize it. So let's dive into that, shall we? And then that'll lead us into our lesson very nicely, which just reiterates that. Okay, so let me share my screen. You can read that, say Kim. Very, very short quote, one of the shortest quotes.
Yes.
I think possibly the shortest quote that I have in the whole program.
No self, no problem.
Yeah, so really, really succinct. In typical Zen style, this was a Zen master who is unknown, so it might just be someone saying it was a Zen master. We don't know, but the point is that the message is profound. It's talking about the root cause, reveals both the root cause of all problems and the solution to all these problems in just four simple words. Okay, so if there's no separate self, then there can be no problem. That's what he's really saying. You might make it five words just to clarify. No separate self, no problem. Because what this is saying is that all of your problems are caused by your identification with the separate self. So the entire physical universe, governed by the laws of time and space, stems from identification with this false self-concept, a separate self. Therefore, all problems that seem to arise when it's so-called reality must also stem from this false self-concept. So this is what is being taught to us in, well, let's go to the right diagram. And see the descent into hell. This false self-concept is the original split in the mind that says to us, you are a separate self, you've made up a separate identity, and because of that, you have now sinned against God, you've destroyed perfect love, and you will be punished for that. So there's a false expectation of punishment that appears to be real. You project that all out in one massive explosion of thought, which scientists call the Big Bang. And now you've got this illusion of some kind of separate world going on with all these separate forms and all of this guilt and sin and fear and attack that goes on here is embedded in it, it's entrenched in it. And what we try and do is let go, is get rid of our guilt by projecting it on to other people and things and saying, I'm not the guilty one. This person or this thing is guilty, and God is going to punish this thing for its guilt. So we try and offload our guilt by blaming, accusing, blaming, and attacking other entities. And so we get this illusion of guilt and fear and attack, which seems to perpetuate an illusion of a separate self living in a body in a very cruel, unfair world, living a helpless, enervated little life, which, as you notice, stands for hell of limitation, lack, loneliness, suffering, inevitably death. And this is what the ego has created, miscreated. This is what it's telling us we are. All of that comes from the idea that you're a separate self. Do you see that? The entire world of illusion stems from one tiny mad idea of separation and of being a separate self and of being guilty for that. These are all steps down the ladder, none of which is true. Okay, so that's just a recap of the metaphysics of what the Course is teaching us, of how the illusion arose. And this quote really summarizes it beautifully. It says, well, if there was no separate self, no ego, no separate consciousness, then there would be no problem because none of this would have arisen. And the truth is that there is really no problem because actually the ego isn't real. So if the idea of separation is illusory and never really happened, then none of the problems that came from it are real. Even though you might be experiencing them as real, they are not ultimately real. So all of your problems are solved by this one idea that there really is no separate self. There is only pure formless awareness of perfect love, which we can call your higher self, but in truth, it's just an awareness that has no name. It's the unknown and unknowable that has no name, that has no form, that which just is, and we put names to it, and we give it some kind of a name because otherwise we couldn't talk about it. But in truth, this is ineffable. This is something you can't really name. It just is. It's the fundamental isness or existence, the fundamental being. Again, we're trying to use language to describe what can't be described. That's before separation was. This is. Jesus said, before Abraham was, um, I am. He was referring to this presence. Before Abraham was, I am. So in time and space, you've got Abraham and all the dream going on. But before that, I am. And this still exists as the I am presence. That's always been there. Okay, so let's go back to this. Um, so this false self concept is just a mistaken idea that you are an individual self. And what happens is one self, the separate self, splits into now individual selves. And now you have multiple, just millions, billions, even trillions of individual selves that now seem to have their own identity because the ego just knows how to separate and fragment. And so it fragments itself into all of these separate entities. You get these increasingly complex and sophisticated separate forms of life, apparently, whose minds have identified with their forms. So whether that's a human or it's an animal or it's a plant or it's an insect, it doesn't really matter. It's the same thing. It's an illusory form of life that is just a projection of the idea of separation. And that's all we see around us. We're looking from the ego's perspective. We just see the separation everywhere because we see separate people and separate animals and separate plants, and everything is apparently separate from us. And that's the delusion of the ego, living as a seemingly separated body, a separate self, identified with the body and a helpless, enervated little life. That's what the individual self, with its own unique identity, personality, life situation, and of course all the problems that are inherent in that life situation that come from this descent into hell. Now you've got guilt and sin and fear and attack going on, and this creates all kinds of problems that are seemingly an integral part of what you call your life in this world. So if this is true, all of your problems come from this false self, as is shown in the diagram, from one tiny mad idea of separation, which isn't true. And the perennial philosophy, which is the foundation of every authentic spiritual path, teaches us that this is the truth. All the great teachers and teachings agree with us. And the answer to all your problems becomes obvious. Just let go of your false self concept and allow it to be replaced by pure formless awareness of perfect love. So your one problem is that you identifying with a false self concept. Now you might say, okay, well, that's easier said than done. But fortunately, uh, with the A Course in Miracles, you now have a clear and effective way to do this in very practical, what we call baby steps, while you live out your seemingly human life in the dream world through the carefully designed mind training program that Yeshua's given us in A Course in Miracles. He's saying, okay, so you're gonna encounter all of these things. Guilt and sin and fear and attack thoughts and blame, and you'll be tempted to blame others and accuse and attack. And thoughts of limitation and lack and loneliness and suffering and death are going to come up, triggered by all of the appearances in the world. But when they do, just remind yourself of the truth that none of this is true. In the temptation to believe the dream, just the nightmare of this world, remind yourself that none of it's true, that only pure formless awareness of perfect love is true. And that is the reinterpretation of the ego's dream by the Holy Spirit, or the remembrance of perfect love. And that's the only reinterpretation we have to do while we seem to be living in this world. We just have to keep doing this reinterpretation over and over with whatever shows up in the dream. And then we are steadily moving away from the dream, and we're moving along these blue arrows, which are like the light shining into the dream, the light of this pure formless awareness shining into the dream. And by following that light, we go back to the source of the light, pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is the ultimate, infinite, eternal light, which is all existence. There is actually nothing else but that light, and the idea of separating from that light was never real. That's the whole course's teaching in a nutshell. So no self, no problem, you could say, really encapsulates the course's teaching in 4 words. The Zen master just nailed the course in 4 words. No self, no problem. There's the very succinct summary of the course. Does that make sense to both of you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. Kim, does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm just looking at like where it says accepting Christ, the one true self, awakens you. So Zen Buddhism is really about it's no self, whereas
Yeah, so
it's
let's
about
let's
the
let's
true
go into
self.
that. Let's talk about it. So interesting, the Buddha never said there was a self. He never came up with the concept of a self. He never said there's a higher self or a creator or a God. He just instructed his followers in meditation. His original technique was Vipassana, breath watching, and body scanning, as a mind training practice that would help these people transcend all sense of being a separate self and reveal the true nature of pure formless awareness or reality, which he called nirvana. Yeshua calls this the kingdom of heaven in the Course in Miracles. We call it the state of pure formless awareness in our alternative language. It doesn't really matter what you call it. These are just pointers to the same ultimate state. So the
Mm.
Buddha kind of said, well, we don't need to really do this. We don't need to go through a process of identifying with a self. Let's just go direct, right? Let's just through these mind training practices. So the meditation was then his practice, right? The meditation was the blue arrows that said, okay, let's just go straight from here via this process of meditation, and you're going to start identifying more and more with pure formless awareness in meditation, right? So when you do a Vipassana meditation, you're being asked to go into this awareness, let go of identifying with a separate self and all of its awareness, and just identify with this pure formless awareness, which just observes. It's the pure witness. It looks at all this and says it's not true. Okay, but actually, it's remarkably similar to what the course is asking us to do, right? The course just says, okay, we'll call that self that can look, the witness that is aware, we'll call that your true self or the Christ. In
Mm.
Buddhism, they call it the Buddha nature. The Buddha never called it the Buddha nature, but people subsequently did. So it has an equivalent term of the true self because there's a witnessing presence that is able to witness these sensations that are going on in the body and transcend them and rise above them and go, okay, but that perception, that sensation isn't true. It isn't real. So I'm not going to react to it. Or if that sounds like forgiveness or letting go, it's because it is. It's the same thing. It's just a different process. He said do it through meditation. Yeshua is
Mm,
saying do it through this process of recognizing the illusion and judging against it and letting it go. But he
mm,
gives us meditation practices. You know, the lessons are the meditative practices that help us with this process of letting go. Just in the same way the Buddha gave us Vipassana, Yeshua gives us these mind training lessons, which he's asking us to meditate on in longer periods as well as in shorter periods, so we remind ourselves. So it's just a different way of getting to the same realization, which is that ultimately we are just this awareness. Buddha called it nirvana, he calls it heaven, we call it pure formless awareness of perfect love. Six of one and half a dozen of another. It doesn't really matter what you call it, because at this level, the names don't matter. There is no name. Pure awareness is just pure awareness. It's a pure experience, whatever you call it. The names are just useful pointers and signposts. So you start seeing that there really is no difference. You take Buddhism, you take Course in Miracles, you take Sufism, you take any of the great mystical traditions. They're really saying the same thing. They just got different language, they've got different terminology, they've got some different practices, different routes of getting there. So think of it like you're climbing a mountain, right? You're climbing Everest, and there's a number of routes up Everest. The Buddhism is one route, and the Course in Miracles is another one, and Advaita Vedanta is another one, and then there might be multiple different routes. And someone on the same route, even if you're taking a Course in Miracles route, your route's going to be slightly different from someone else because every step is not going to be exactly the same. You're going to have your own unique experience on that same route, But when you get to the top, it's the same top, right? All the routes converge in that top, and you all meet at the
mm,
top, and you go right there from the top. We realize it's the same top, it's the same view. We all see the same thing from the top because there's a very small top of Everest. The top is only, like 100 or 200 meters wide. So everyone's going to meet there. Whatever path you took, you'll meet at the top. It's the same thing with spirituality. So anyone who says, "Oh, well, Buddhism's better, Course is better," they're deluded because it's all leading the same way. You might say, "Okay, there's going to be the long way to get there. Some of these paths will be a very long, circuitous route, and they're not going to take you very directly to the top." And then a path like A Course in Miracles or Buddhism, if you practice it correctly, just practicing the Vipassana, it's going to take you more directly there. It's like, okay, it's a more direct route. You're not going to waste time. That's so, but in the end, they'll take you to the same destination. So all of the dogma of, oh, but this is Buddhism and this is A Course and they don't agree, all of that falls away when you have this understanding. Because actually they're saying the same thing. They just don't use the same language to describe it. So even in Buddhism, although the Buddha didn't talk about a self or God, he's giving us a roadmap, and the roadmap is very similar to the Course. There's a pathway. It's about letting go of our attachment to our body, which means we're letting go of a separate self, and we're going into a sense of a higher self that has this higher awareness that can perceive these things correctly. Well, that's the true self. That's the Christ that Yeshua is talking about. Although it may not have been named by the Buddha, there's going to be that awareness developing as you follow his path. If you do Vipassana, you will develop this higher awareness of true self to a high degree. And as you develop that, at some point, that is just going to merge back into pure formless awareness of perfect love or nirvana or heaven, and you're just going to become one with that if you practice it enough. Does that make sense? So you go, okay, it's all the same. It's not really teaching anything different. So I got banned from a Course in Miracles network in the UK because they said, "Oh, well, now you're studying Buddhism, and that's not pure enough." I mean, but that's just delusional. You don't understand then what these teachings are really teaching. You've got into the separation of the dogma of, okay, there's Course in Miracles and there's Buddhism and they're all separate. And now it's a separate, distinct path. And now we've got to segment it. And we've got to say, you can only do this. And it's just nonsense. It's ridiculous. But that's what happens when you get attached to the theory and the dogma and you don't really understand these concepts experientially. That's what happens. And that's what's happened, unfortunately, throughout history with different religions. They all go their separate way. And now, the Christian is apparently different from the Muslim, it's different from the Hindu, it's different from the Buddhist, and they're all studying something different and they're learning a different truth. That's what the ego would have us believe, but it's just not true. Actually, they're studying ultimately the same reality, the same truth, and they're just different ways of getting there. So the Course in Miracles is designed to bring about the same experience as any of these great teachings for its students using a different methodology, which is forgiveness or letting go of your false self-concept by systematically letting go of all the negative thoughts and emotions that negate this pure formless awareness, or nirvana, as the Buddha called it, to reveal the Christ or the true self or the Buddha nature that comes from this awareness, but which is also able to perceive this world from the perspective of this awareness. Okay, so that's this intermediary level of, okay, I have this awareness, this true self, and it's connected to my source. And so I feel that very strongly, and I'm drawing on that pure formless awareness now to look on the world with different eyes, with a true perception that helps me reinterpret the dream of death and disaster and perceive it correctly, which is true perception or Christ vision. And the course is just teaching us how to do that in a very systematic, practical way through both the workbook and the lessons in the workbook, as well as the text, which gives us the theory. So because it's perfectly one, this true self will ultimately bring your mind into the state of pure formless awareness that the Buddha called nirvana, Yeshua calls the kingdom of heaven in the Course in Miracles. So it's going to ultimately bring you back into this awareness, because at the highest level, the true self and this higher awareness merge and they become one. And you realize there's no separation between them. And all perception is unnecessary. You don't need to correct perception anymore if you fully identified with this awareness, because there's no more body, there's no more vision, there's no more seeing from a separate self. All the images just collapse into pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is the final step that Yeshua says God takes. The Buddha just said, well, you'll just go into bliss, you'll go surrender, merge into nirvana. Same thing. It's the same process. Okay, so is that clear? So therefore, just to summarize it all, accepting Christ or the one true self as your identity in this world awakens you from your false self-concept based on the belief in separation, and that's just the ego, into the pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is the phrase we use to replace the word God in our translated versions of the lesson and text. So it's a necessary step. You're going to have to go via the true self and correcting your perception with the help of the true self in order to finally get back to pure formless awareness of perfect love, heaven or nirvana. It's a process, and you can't generally skip the steps. I'm not saying it's impossible. There are rare people who have gone straight from here to here. It can happen, but it's very, very rare. It doesn't happen very often. And so Yeshua says, well, that's so unlikely that let's not even consider that as a possibility. Rather focus on correcting your perceptions with the help of the true self and the Holy Spirit, remembrance of perfect love, so that you get closer and closer. You're just getting closer and closer to pure formless awareness the more you do that, and eventually God will take the final step. And so you're preparing yourself for that final step every time you practice forgiveness or letting go. Okay, so yeah, it's simple stuff, but it's quite profound, isn't it? And the more you go into this, the more you go, this is really actually very profound teaching. It's a very simple teaching, but it's very profound, and it's the only thing that's actually going to work. whether you're doing it as a Buddhist or you're doing it as a Course in Miracles student or you're doing it through another spiritual path, this process of letting go or forgiveness, whatever you want to call it, surrendering, forgiveness, letting go, acceptance. I just think letting go is a really good term because it's very descriptive of what you actually have to do. The other terms, forgiveness, a lot of people don't realize what forgiveness means. Forgiveness doesn't tell you overtly that it's about letting go of your negative self-concept. Letting go tells you more directly what's required. Similarly, surrender. Okay, surrender to what? Surrender what to what? It's not clear. Acceptance. Well, that can be grossly misinterpreted. Well, what am I accepting? Am I accepting the reality of the situation that I'm perceiving? Is that what acceptance means? Or am I accepting the deeper underlying truth that underlies it? Again, it's not clear. So, all these terms can be used, but I prefer to use the clearest language possible, which is letting go. That's why the program is called The Art of Letting Go. Because I think that's the clearest uh, language to describe the process that you're actually going to undergo to correct your mind and ultimately heal it and go back home to pure formless awareness of perfect love. Okay, so any other comments or questions on any of that? Does it make sense?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
At least
Yeah,
theoretically, at least intellectually. But hopefully,
yeah, yeah.
what starts to happen, you can accept it intellectually, it starts to become experiential at a point. You know, say, okay, the logic of that makes sense. That's a starting point, right? That's where the course meets us. He's going, look, I know you're not going to get this experientially straight away because you've blocked out this awareness. That's why you believe you're a separate self. You've blocked out the experience of this awareness deliberately to believe that you're a separate self. So it's going to take some time to get you back into that experience. But what you can do is start accepting the truth of the logic. That's where he starts us. Okay, so accept the truth of this logic intellectually, and that is a big step in the right direction. Because if you can accept this logically, then you can start then applying the forgiveness or the letting go that this then logically suggests you should do. Because what else are you going to do? If you accept the logic of this diagram, what else are you going to do to heal yourself? What else are you going to do to get out of hell? There's really only one way out then, isn't there? If you accept the logic. So that's the starting point. That's where the course meets us. Okay, let's get you to accept the logic of this, because if you accept the logic, then you'll start willingly practicing letting go. And the more you practice letting go, the more the logic will make sense. And the more you'll identify with your true self experientially, not just logically, the more you start to then awaken to this pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is an experience. And that will start to happen more and more as you practice. And eventually, the gap between the true self as a concept and this pure formless awareness is going to be so narrow that it's just going to disappear. And that's what he describes as God's final step. And that you're just going to merge back into this awareness. You become one with this awareness, and all of this stuff in the blue arrows and the red box, and all the labels and the language and the process of transformation or healing or forgiveness or letting go, whatever you want to call it, all that disappears. It's not needed anymore because you're just this awareness. There's only this one pure awareness. Okay, but the one self, the one self that we are, is a necessary step in that direction. So when he says, I am one self united with my source, that seems to contradict the no self, no problem. But remember, that's a small s. No separate self, no problem. You identify with the one self, capital self, that is a necessary step in the right direction. That is still a concept, but it's the self concept that's going to ultimately unite you with your source, as the lesson says. Okay, so that leads very nicely into the lesson. So let's go with that. This is Right. Yep. Okay. I don't know if I can take pictures, but that's okay. There we go. Oops. So, let's go back to the lesson. This is lesson 95. We're at, which is so let's read that in the original, and in the alternative, just take turns doing that. So, Kim, if you can read the original of that key idea, and then Elaine, you read the alternative, and then we'll move into paragraph 1, doing the same thing.
Okay. I am one self, united with my creator.
I am one self, united with my source.
Okay, so the only thing that's really changed there is the creator has changed to the source. So instead of a creator, like the idea that you've been created, the idea of a source is that you were never created because you've always been, right? If this is eternal, then there's no sense of I was created. It's just this is my fundamental awareness, that's my source, that's always been. So that's why we changed the language from creator to source. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it's eternal. Creator sort of implies, okay, well, there was a moment of creation where I came into being. A lot of people believe this. Good Christians believe, okay, there was a moment where I was created. I didn't exist, and then I was created by the ultimate creator. But that's not true. Because if you are eternal, that can't be true, right?
Mm.
Your eternal nature means that there was never a time when you didn't exist. So there was never a time when you were created. That's all illusory. That's you created a separate self. Creation applies only to consciousness and to the separate self. It doesn't apply to the source, which is eternal. That was never created or not created. It just is. It's existed eternally, forever, beyond time and space. This is something that the intellectual mind, the ego mind, will struggle to get its head around because it doesn't make logical sense to the ego. But your spirit recognizes this is true. It says, yeah, if I'm an eternal being, then this must be true. That I have a source and that source is eternal. And so there was never a time when I didn't exist and when I wasn't one with the source. And my one self, when I claim my one self, I unite with my source. I reclaim that connection. And ultimately, I will merge with my source, which is pure formless awareness of perfect love. And I will just become that. And that's the merging of the Son with the Father, the extension of the one self with the Father, the source, the Christ with the Father, right? The one self is the Christ, the source is the Father. So the Son or Christ merges with the Father when the one self, the Christ, realizes that it is the source and there really is no difference. That it is simply pure formless awareness of perfect love and nothing else. And that's the total healing of the mind, which is the process we're on. That's the journey we're on, is to bring this one self to the source, and they merge as one identical awareness. And there is no separation between any of it. Now that's pure formless awareness of perfect love. That's God. That's level 1 in the dream. Going back here, that's this level in this blue oval. Anything in here is level 1, and there is nothing else. At this level, this is pure non-duality. There is nothing else. Everything else has disappeared into the illusion that it is. It simply ceases to exist in your mind, which is the only place that it has illusion. That makes sense. Okay? So the one self is just a necessary part of that journey. So let's look at Elaine, you can read this, given it's your courtesy of you that you sent me these images. Thank you again. Just read the one self,
Yeah.
which then leads to I am one self.
Yeah. I am one self, united with my creator,
with my source,
or source, yes, as one with every aspect of creation. And
yeah, and we can again translate creation
just
as the extension, right? So everything here that we see is an extension of perfect love. Just doesn't seem to be that way. It seems to be fragmented into aspects, but actually everything is this creation or extension that is really an extension of the one mind. The one self is a proxy for that one mind. So when we start to go into the one self, we start to see that really actually everything is the same self. You see, that's the unity. I see the various aspects, but I see myself in all the aspects. Jesus, me, you, every person, every form, identity in the world that seems to be a separate aspect is actually part of the one self. It's part of this one diamond, this one reality. Now, when you go above this, above the above any of the separations, so you don't see aspects, you don't see facets of the diamond, then you're back in God. Then you're back in this. Yeah? There are no aspects in this because there's no separation in this. The aspects only seem to exist from the perspective of the true self looking at the illusion, right? So to correlate the diagrams, this is where this diamond would exist. The various aspects being looked on now with the one self, the true self, giving you Christ's vision of the various aspects. And getting you to see that actually, although they seem to be separate aspects, they're actually just part of the one self. They're the same self, just being shown in a different form. And this is limitless in power and in peace. Because underlying it is this pure formless awareness that's completely limitless, that's infinite, that's eternal, and that awareness is shining through the true self, the one self, into the dream, and bringing its limitless power and peace to all of these aspects, to all of these appearances. Okay, so this is just giving us the process. Again, it's a process. It's a way home. This is now dealing at this level, the mezzanine level and level 2. That's where the diamond is. That's where our perception is corrected, so that ultimately we can transcend that and go back to level 1, which is pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is perfectly non-dual. And that's what these lessons are designed to do, to help you to do this, to undertake this process and this journey, identify more and more with your true self or higher awareness until eventually they become one. And the apparently separate self merges back into the pure formless awareness of perfect love that it always was, but it just didn't recognize. It departed from that and believed in an illusion for a while, that while being time, and then creates an illusion of space as well, in order to time space go together. To have time, you need space. To have space, you need time. As Einstein commented in his theory of relativity, he understood that they are actually part of the same system. And that's a relative system. It's not an absolute system. Right? So all of these experiences in time and space are relative, not absolute. Einstein understood that in relativity. He said, this is not absolute reality, it's relative reality. Hence the theory of relativity. One thing is relative to another. Time is relative to space. It interacts with that. Matter and energy are relative to each other. But none of this is ultimately true. What underlies it all is this pure awareness that from which that underlies it all, that is the source ultimately of it all. The pure formless awareness didn't create the dream, but a tiny mad idea of separation split off from this awareness and then believed that it was a separate self and miscreated a world. And now we have to just correct that delusion. Okay. So let's go on to number 1 then. So again, Kim, if you can read the original. sentence by sentence. Then Elaine, you alternate with the alternative, sentence by sentence. Kindly.
Today's idea
Okay.
accurately describes, today's idea accurately describes you as God created you. You are one within yourself and one with Him. Yours is the unity of all creators.
Elaine, Kim,
Sorry.
stop. Just
Yeah.
let Elaine come in.
Sorry, Elaine. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's, yeah. Today's idea accurately describes me as pure formless awareness of perfect love extends me. And you read number 2 as well. I am one within myself and one with it.
Kim,
Yours
carry on.
is the unity of all creation.
The unity of all being is mine.
Your perfect unity makes change in you impossible.
My perfect unity makes change in me impossible.
You do not accept this, and you fail to realize it must be so, only because you believe that you have changed yourself already.
I do not accept this and fail to realize it must be so, only because I believe that I have changed myself already. And from the top, today's idea accurately describes me as pure formless awareness of perfect love, extends me. I am one with myself and one with it. The unity of all being is mine. My perfect unity makes change in me impossible. I do not accept this and fail to realize it must be so only because I believe that I have changed myself already. So it's just telling us that we're already, it's describing us as the pure formless awareness of perfect love, and it extends us. And we're one with this self and one with it. So we're just all a unity of all being. My perfect unity makes change in me impossible. My perfect unity makes change in me impossible. Or is that just saying if we're separate?
If we perfectly one, we can't change.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right? Change only happens in separation. Change implies that you have separated from your source, that you become something else, and now you have time in which change is seemingly possible. And now you have time and space unfolding, and you've made the impossible seemingly possible. This is the whole delusion, right? We've made what is actually impossible, the idea of separation, seemingly possible. But because we believed it, because the power of our minds is so great that if we want to believe in separation, we can, and we misuse it. We misuse our minds by believing in separation. We believe in an impossible dream, and the impossible dream will never work because it is an impossible dream. And look at this is quite a good illustration of that. So look at what's going on here in the impossible cube, right? The cube on the right. You never make sense of that because it doesn't make sense. You can look at that forever and it'll never make sense because it doesn't make sense because it's an impossible cube. Just like the idea of the ego of separation is impossible. So what we try and do in the ego is we look at that cube and we try and make sense of it. And we look and we look and we try and figure out an angle and we try and make sense of it. And we look at it from every different perspective. And we try and get inside it. And we try and look at it from the top. And it doesn't matter which way you look at it. From the top, there's two ways of seeing it. It's either coming out the page or you can look at it from top down. You can see that, right? But you notice how your perspective shifts. But whichever way you look at it doesn't make sense. There's something wrong with it, yeah? Because it's an impossible cube. And so that's a good analogy for, the world and the world of the ego. We look and we look and we try and figure it out. We try and somehow make the impossible cube work. But it's never going to work. The Course is just saying, look, this is never going to work because it's a faulty formulation of reality. That's a direct quote from the Course. What you have is a faulty formulation of reality. It's an impossible dream, another quote from the Course. It's never going to work. So give it up. Let it go. That's the only way out. Just look at that whole impossible cube and say, well, it is just an impossible cube. I'm not going to look into the cube and try and figure it out, because the more I do that, the more I'm trying to make it real. And I'll just get very, very frustrated if I do that. So I need to look at the whole thing from the perspective of this higher awareness that sees that it's just an impossible idea. It's never going to work, and just dismiss the whole thing, right? It's not possible. I let it all go. I dismiss it all. And this ultimately is unreal. It's impossible, then it never really happened, right? It's an impossible dream. It never really happened. So it's unreal. It never really happened. So why do I have to go into analyzing its consequences and try to figure out the impossible when it never really happened? This is the Course's logic. It's the only logic, the logic of the Holy Spirit or the remembrance of perfect love, that's gonna get you out of the dream. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in the impossible cube trying to figure this out forever and never succeeding, which is going to be the most frustrating thing you can do. And we all know the frustration of this, of trying to figure out the impossible dream, trying to make it work. We've all tried many, many ways to do that. And the Course is finally saying, look, I'm gonna bring some relief to this misery and to this, really futile pursuit, because it's never going to work. And I remember when I really understood that, I was like, oh, thank God, someone's actually told me the truth. Not an easy truth to accept, but thank God someone is actually telling me the truth, because otherwise I would, in my deluded mind, try and make the impossible cube work forever, and I wouldn't succeed. And I'll just continuously get frustrated and die in that frustrated state. And then, you come back because you're still trying to make the impossible cube work. So guess what? The body's expired. Well, that's okay. The ego will make you another body, and you'll come back and you'll reincarnate and you'll try again to make the impossible dream work. And we have been doing that over and over and over again for who knows how many lifetimes. How many times have we tried that? The Course is saying, give it up. Get off that futile track, the cycle of birth and death. Get off it, because it's never going to work. And the only way you get off it is through forgiveness. This kind of radical forgiveness, or letting go, as we call it. That's going to just see the impossible cube for what it is and going to say, forget it. Don't try and figure that out. Don't try and do anything to this. Just recognize that it's impossible and that it just needs to be let go of entirely. And that's the Holy Spirit's thought system and logic. Okay. Happy to go on to number 2.
Yeah.
I want to switch it now. So Elaine, you read the original, Kim read the alternative.
Yeah. You see yourself as a ridiculous parody on God's creation, weak, vicious, ugly, and sinful, miserable, and beset with pain.
I perceive myself as a ridiculous parody of perfect love's extension, weak, vicious, ugly, and sinful, miserable, and tormented by pain.
Such is your version of yourself, a self divided into many wearing parts, separated from God and tenuously held together by its erratic and capricious maker, to which you pray.
Such is my
That was
version.
warring parts, yeah? Warring parts.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's the parts are at war with each other.
All right.
I just changed it. I changed war to conflict, actually, in the translation. Sorry, Kim, to interrupt you. I just wanted to make that point.
Such is my version of myself, self-divided, into many conflicting parts, separate from my pure formless awareness of perfect love, continuously held together by its erratic and capricious maker, to which I pray.
And it does not hear your prayers, for it is deaf.
It does not hear my prayers, for it is deaf.
It does not see the oneness in you, for it is blind.
It does not perceive the oneness in me, for it is blind.
It does not understand you are the Son of God, for it is senseless and understands nothing.
It does not understand I am the extension of perfect love, for it is senseless and understands nothing. Okay,
Then read
I
it from the
perceive,
top in the alternative.
I perceive myself as a ridiculous parody of perfect love's extension, weak, vicious, ugly, and sinful, miserable, and tormented by pain. Such is my version of myself, a self divided into many conflicting parts, separate from pure formless awareness of perfect love, and tenuously held together by its erratic and capricious maker, to which I pray. It does not hear my prayers, for it is deaf. It does not perceive the oneness in me, for it is blind. It does not understand I am the extension of perfect love, for it is senseless and understands nothing. So it's saying it's just, this is all about, I'm perceiving myself as what is defined by the ego, just these separate pieces, kind of just opposite of
It's
love,
always
just
conflicting,
not
This is where all the
nice. Yeah,
conflict comes. Conflict
yeah.
comes from separation. If I perceive myself as separate and I have separate interests from other people and other entities, then there's going to be conflict. And this happens throughout the dream, right? People go, "Oh, nature's so wonderful." No, it's not. Just go and, watch a lion ripping, eating a buck alive, or, it's eat or be eaten, right? That's how nature works. So all these separate entities killing and being killed by each other, that's conflict. That's the conflicting parts he's talking about. There's still a unity in it all. So you can see unity in nature just like you can see unity in anything because it's there, but you have to look beyond the conflicting parts to do that. And then he's saying we pray to this maker. Oh, please help me, God, in my dream world. Please make my dream a bit better. I'd really like this, I'd really like this thing, this person, this special relationship, this treat. And that's going to make my dream life a little bit better. But actually, those prayers are just delusions. That's the craving that the Buddha talked about, which is the source of all suffering and the second noble truth. He said craving or desire is the source of all suffering because you're praying to this erratic and capricious maker for some kind of gifts, for some salvation from the misery that it's created. And of course, it will oblige. It'll give you these little gifts, apparently. But are they really gifts? So it gives us, oh, you can have stuff, or you could binge out on food, or you could smoke something or take a drug or drink something, and it tells you this is the answer. But of course, it's not the answer. Anyone who's ever been addicted to anything knows it's not the answer because it doesn't really address the root cause of the problem, which is in your own mind. The problem is separation. You believe you're a separate self. That is the only problem we have. And over, he's got to repeat that in the course because we're so thick because of the ego's programming that we don't want to understand that there's only one problem and then therefore there's only one solution. As he says, it doesn't perceive the oneness in me because it's blind. It doesn't understand I'm an extension of perfect love, for it is senseless and understands nothing. What's he saying? It's totally thick, it's idiotic, it's stupid. It understands nothing. So why are you listening to this thing that's totally ignorant and senseless and doesn't understand anything as your guide in life? Is that a sensible decision to make? That's what he's trying to get us to see for ourselves. No, that's a ridiculous decision to trust that. He doesn't know what it's doing. It's like trusting a guide. If ever you've had directions, we've all had that experience. You ask for someone for directions. They say, "Oh yeah, just go there," and actually they had no idea. They were clueless, and they sent you in the wrong direction. You're like, "Well, hang on, I followed the directions, and I'm just now at a dead end. I don't know where I'm going." That's what it's like following the ego. It's only going to lead to frustration and a sense of despair. So again, he's highlighting this and he's telling us, this is what it is. This is the ridiculous parody of creation that you've made. He has to tell us straight what the ego is so that we can awaken from it. This is what I'd call a stick paragraph. So it's like, okay, so I've got to show you the bad side of it. But he never leaves us there because he'll give us the carrot and he'll say, okay, but actually I'm going to show you the truth. That's coming in the rest of the lesson. Okay? Any comments or questions on that one?
No, it's
No,
good.
no.
It's good.
Okay, happy to go on to number 3 then. So just switch it again. So Kim, I think you read the original,
Okay.
Elaine read the alternative.
We will attempt today to be aware only of what can hear and see and what makes perfect sense.
I will attempt today. Oops. I will attempt today to be aware only of what can hear and perceive truly and makes perfect sense.
We will again direct our exercises towards reaching your one self, which is united with its creator.
I will again direct my efforts in today's exercises towards reaching my one self, which is united with its source.
In patience and in hope, we try again today.
In patience and hope, I try again today. And from the top, I will attempt today to be aware only of what can hear, perceive truly, and makes perfect sense. I will again direct my efforts in today's exercises towards reaching my one self, which is united with its source. In patience and hope, I try again today. So it's just asking us to attempt to hear and perceive truly, because this is what makes perfect sense. So we will put our efforts in the exercises today to reach this self, which is actually united with source and with patience and hope. Yeah. And just
Yeah, it's acknowledging, okay, so this is a process and it can seem difficult and can seem like you're not getting anywhere, but okay, he's saying you be patient, you hope because you know that ultimately there's something there, right? if you've gone this far in the course, lesson 95, there's something in you that goes, I know there's hope here. I'm going to study this course because I know actually deep down that it's my only hope in this world of finding any kind of peace and happiness and ultimately escaping from, frankly, what is hell. So we try again today. Every lesson is another opportunity to try again. So this is a
Yeah.
course for players, right? All he's asking you to do is give it a go, try. Not asking you to be perfect and get it all right, and you need to be some super enlightened being to do this course. In fact, no, if you're a super enlightened being, you wouldn't need the course. You wouldn't need to practice what you already understand. He says that. You need to practice because you don't understand it, but that's okay. Just be patient, keep trying in the hope and the ultimate understanding that yes, this is ultimately going to work, but it's going to be a process. And it's going to take a long time, probably the rest of my life, to do this. All right. So, let me just plug away and do this every day. And then he goes into a little bit of coaching about how we do this, right? So he does this every now and then, sometimes in the lessons or in the introductions to the lessons, where he says, "Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the methodology of this course and how you're actually going to practice this." So he does that in number 4. This is going away from the metaphysics into the very, very practical way that he's asking us to practice the lessons. Okay, so again, switch it. So Elaine, you read the original.
Yeah.
Probably actually we can skip because there's not really much to translate. So
Oh,
just read the alternative.
who, me or Kim?
You read it. Yeah.
For me,
Whoever,
Kim.
it doesn't matter. Whoever wants to read it.
the use of the first 5 minutes of every waking hour for practicing the idea for the day has special advantages at the stage of learning in which I am at present. It is difficult at this point not to allow my mind to wander if it undertakes extended practice. I have surely realized this by now. I have experienced the extent of my lack of mental discipline and consequent need for mind training. It is necessary that I be aware of this, for it is indeed a hindrance to my spiritual progress.
Yeah. So what's he saying there?
Um, it's just saying that, we're doing this practice, but we still, kind of, we're not practiced enough at it as yet where our mind is not going to start wandering. And it's just highlighting that we probably do realize that it's just bringing awareness to that, something that we actually probably are aware of. And hence we need this mind training. So it's just a recognition about that.
Yeah, and he's saying, look, it's common that your mind is going to wander. Everyone who starts any kind of spiritual practice, typically meditation, but whatever you're doing, your mind wanders, doesn't it? And you start thinking about other stuff. That's just common. And that probably still happens. It still happens to me. Mind wanders off and but you bring it back when you notice, you go, okay, so my mind's wandered again. I'm in the dream again. I'm identifying with myself and the world, and I'm thinking these kinds of thoughts. Okay, we'll bring it back. Using the idea, using the lesson, using the breath. It's another way of doing it. Body scanning, another way of doing it. And you bring it back to the truth. And you just keep doing that. And you do that he's saying, do this in the first 5 minutes of every waking hour. Wow. Okay. So, I mean, he's saying, like, let's commit to this. Spend 5 minutes an hour doing this, because in those 5 minutes, you are reminding yourself of the truth. You're taking your mind back to its true awareness. And if you do that frequently, then you start to identify more and more with that awareness. If you don't do it and the ego is just running the show, then that awareness never breaks through. So, in this aspect, in this phase of the course, he's saying, so let's start practicing more regularly, be a bit more disciplined, so that you can accelerate this awakening process, and do it for 5 minutes every hour. Now, you might go, that's not possible. Well, if you really valued it, it would be. But even if you did 1 minute, or even if you did 30 seconds, or even 10 seconds, it's something, isn't it? It's a start. It interrupts the pattern of the ego. So, the breath breaks I've given you allow you to do this. Like, the idea is, okay, put the breath break on, listen to it for 3, 4, 5 minutes, because they're generally less than 5 minutes. And you're done, right? You take a little break, refreshes you, and then you carry on working. If you go and you need to get up, you can go stretch your legs while you do it. You can go to the toilet. You can get a cup of tea. Just integrate it into your routine. No one sits all day every day. After an hour of sitting, you generally need to take a break, right? Your body starts getting restless. Your mind gets restless. You get up. You do something else, you walk away. Well, that's the time to take your break. And just remind yourself. If you can't sit down or do it standing, then just remind yourself of the key idea. And go, okay, all I have to do is remind myself, it's a very simple key idea, today's idea, that I am one with my one self and my source. One self united with my source. Okay? So few words, that's what, 6, 7 words, 8 words, 9 words, something like that. These ideas are short and sweet because he wants us to remember them. He's saying if you can do that every hour, that's going to be massively helpful in your spiritual progress. And now he talks a little bit more about it. So, Elaine, if you read this one, frequent but shorter practice periods of other advantages at this time.
Yeah. Frequent but shorter practice periods have other advantages for me at this time. In addition to recognizing my difficulties with sustained attention, I have also noticed that unless I am reminded of my purpose frequently, I tend to forget about it for long periods of time. I often fail to remember the short applications of the idea for the day, and I have not yet formed the habit of using the idea as an automatic response to temptation. So it's just saying that it's, these short little practices frequently will become a habit. And so then it becomes an automatic response to temptation.
Yeah. And that's the habit he's trying to get us into by practicing the lesson. That's why he gives us the short practice periods as well as the long ones. The long ones are important, but you could argue the shorter ones are even more important or equally important. Because you can do your long practice periods and you do your meditation, you're like, okay, great, I've done my morning practice, I'm all set for the day, great. And then what happens? Challenges come up, right? Something happens and you get triggered and you get challenged and then you forget it. And you forget the idea and you forget the practice. It all goes out the window. And he's saying, well, that's when you need the idea most. You need to bring your mind back to the truth by applying the idea when you most need it in the day. And you need to get into the habit of doing that frequently so that, in easy times, let's say you're having a day where you're not being that triggered, you're in the routine of practicing and you're like, okay, I'll do it every hour just regularly because I'm reminding myself. Now, when a challenge comes along, you've got that practice entrenched. You're like, okay, I know what to do now. I'm just going to go practice because I do it every hour anyway. So I'm ready for this. But if you do it very infrequently and you don't practice in shorter practice periods, it's going to be much more difficult. You're more likely to forget the truth and lose yourself down the rabbit hole of the ego, aren't you?
Yeah, it's
So we
true.
know, he's speaking to us here and he's saying, look, I know where you're at. He's meeting us where we are. And I know what your mind's doing. I know how the ego works, just like any good teacher does. And I'm trying to help you to overcome that. So listen to me and just discipline yourself and do these shorter practice periods because it's really going to help you to learn this course much, much more quickly than if you just do longer periods. That's a great start. Do a longer period in the morning and the evening, great start. But you've maybe got 12 to 16 hours in between them. That's too long. You've
It's
got
true.
12 to 16 hours without remembering, and all these things arise in the dream, and you get triggered, and now the ego has held sway for 12 to 16 hours, and then you only come back to the truth at night. It's too long. You've allowed the ego to come in and dominate your thinking for too long. He's saying that's not going to work. You're not going to awaken if you do that. You need these shorter, frequent reminders in the moment. The idea is catch it in the moment. Okay, so I'm tempted to go into the illusion. I can feel whatever the negative emotion is arising, as you both did today. Okay, I'm going to practice. I'm going to use the lesson. I'm going to practice. I'm going to let this go. And I'm going to find my way out of it through the practice. And that is the miracle. That's the correction that is the miracle that he's talking about. And that's why it's called A Course in Miracles. It's designed to help you make those corrections as they are needed, moment by moment, in your daily life. So it becomes very, very, very practical. And you're doing this all the time. You might do multiple corrections a day like that. So miracles become just a normal part of your daily life. Not some, oh, weird and wonderful. Oh, I had a miracle and that was so unusual. It's like, no, I'm doing this daily, hourly. Whenever I spot a negative thought, then I practice this and that's the miracle. You're getting it. That's how practical this course is. It's so practical and helpful if you will have the discipline to apply it, which is why, I give you the breath breaks to help you. So, okay, just stick that on, just listen to it, be guided through it, and just go, once you've done that, you've practiced the lesson and you've done what you need to do, then carry on with your day for the next hour and then do it again the next hour, and so on. And if you do that, you will make very, very quick spiritual progress. You'll learn this course in no time. Remember, he's designed it so you can learn this in a year. Say, okay, you can actually learn this thought system in a year if you're really a good student. In practice, it takes people much longer because we're not good students and we don't follow the practice and we don't do it in a, as we should. But if you did and you actually practiced as he suggested, you would make lightning fast progress. Can you see that?
Yeah. Hmm.
So it's just about, well, okay, like, can I take it to the next level? Can I actually commit to doing it every hour? And making that, a commitment. If he's asking me to do it, instead of saying, oh, okay, well, I can't do it and just forget it. No, no, I'll actually do it. I'll actually make it a commitment and I'll do it. So yeah, you can make that decision. Not that difficult. You can get apps, you can get timers on your phone that buzz every hour. And then when that happens, you just go, okay, I'll just practice the lesson. Take 2 minutes, practice the lesson, and then carry on. Okay, so number 6. Therefore, structure is necessary. Kim, if you want to read that one.
Therefore, structure is necessary for me at this time, planned to include frequent reminders of my goal and regular attempts to reach it.
Yeah, just read the whole thing.
Okay. Regularity in terms of time is not the ideal requirement for the most beneficial form of practice in awakening. However, it is advantageous for those whose motivation is inconsistent and who remain heavily resistant to learning.
Well, so does that resonate? Given what we talked about earlier, you can see your own
Yeah,
resistance. We don't want to learn this. There's a part of us that does not want to learn this.
yeah,
And so we'll keep making stupid decisions and listening to the ego because we don't want to learn this, because this means the end of our separate self and our existence as a separate self as a human being. And our ego can't handle that. The ego does not want to see that and does not want to go there. That's where the resistance comes from. The ego says this is death. The Holy Spirit says, no, this is eternal life. This is letting go of the belief in death, which is the ego, and merging your mind back into pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is eternal life. And can you see they'll never agree? They will always be at odds with each other because what the ego perceives as death is actually eternal life. And the Holy Spirit perceives death as what it is and says, this is not what you really want. This slow death that we call life here, because that's what it is. It's a slow death, right? We can't all come here and we commit suicide. Some of us just take 80 years to commit suicide. Some of us do it much quicker. It depends on how long you choose to live. But ultimately, you come here to commit suicide, if we're honest about it. Because whatever you do here, it's going to lead to death. The moment you're born, you're on a pathway to death. It's just going to happen sooner or later. He wants us to see that inevitability of that, recognize the despair and the futility of that so that we make the choice to let it go. And he's saying the way you do that is just practice, practice, practice. Put structure in, be disciplined about your practice, because it's going to take some undoing, right? You've so invested in this false thought system and the false self and the world that it's going to take a lot of practice to undo this. Which is why it's saying, don't waste time. Use every hour to do some practice. Okay. So then he goes on, therefore I will keep to the 5 minutes an hour. Elaine, if you can read that.
Therefore, I will keep to the 5 minutes an hour practice periods for a while and omit as few as possible. Using the first 5 minutes of each hour will be particularly helpful for me since it imposes firmer structure. However, I will not use my lapses from this schedule as an excuse not to return to it again as soon as I can. I may well be tempted to regard the day as lost because I have already failed to do what is required. However, I will merely recognize this as what it is, a refusal to let my mistake be corrected and an unwillingness to try again. So it's just saying, if we can keep to these 5 minutes an hour practice, and okay, there will be some misses, but not fall into the excuse of not returning to it again and being defeated by it.
Yeah. And it's very easy to say, oh, this is too difficult. I'm not going to do this. And then you never do it because it's too difficult. And your mind is just essentially given up on a very, very important part of the whole practice of the course, which means that your spiritual progress is going to be hampered, which means that you're just listening to the ego and saying, I don't really want to go home yet. I want to stay in the illusion and suffer some more. So this is really a refusal to let my mistake be corrected and an unwillingness to try again. So he's kind of asking us to be very honest here, isn't it? This is calling for a lot of honesty and saying, oh, okay, I recognize these patterns of behavior, and I recognize that I'm really actually still quite resistant to this truth, and I'm actually wanting to preserve my ego by not practicing, and there's no real excuse for that. I've just got to see it for what it really is and be honest. Remember, the second characteristic of God's teachers is honesty. This is the kind of honesty he's talking about. Very, very self-honest. I'm willing to look in the mirror and see what I'm doing, warts and all, because when I see that, only then will I change it. If I want to, not see that and blame someone else and deny it, then I can't really correct my mistake. And I'm not going to change it. So a call to radical self-honesty. All right. And then next one, the Holy Spirit. That's going to be translated as remembrance of perfect love. Is not delayed in his teaching by your mistakes. So that's the only thing that needs translation. Kim, if you can read that one in the alternative kindly.
Mm. Remembrance of perfect love is not delayed in its teaching by my mistakes. It can be held back only by my willingness to let them go. Therefore, I am determined in particular for the
By
next
my
week
unwilling.
or so. Oh, sorry. What? Sorry, Janet, did you say something?
Can be held back only by my unwillingness, not my willingness. My unwillingness to
Okay.
let.
It can be held back only by my unwillingness to let them go. Therefore, I am determined, particularly for the next week or so, to let go of judging myself for my lapses in diligence and my failure to follow the instructions, practicing the day's idea. This tolerance for weakness will enable me to overlook it rather than give it power to delay my learning. If I give it power to do this, I'm regarding it as strength and confusing strength with weakness.
Okay, so what's he saying there?
So rather than like judging myself or, almost punishing myself because I'm not, my mind is wandering, etc., I'm not going to do that. Otherwise, I'm giving myself power. I'm giving that power, my separate
Yeah.
self power.
Yeah. Because you're making it real. You see, by judging and go, oh, why am I doing that? I'm so bad. I'm really bad at this. I'm guilty. What you resist persists. It's like, okay, well, you're making the
Mm.
ego real, strengthening it. So you're just not going to give it power. When you do that, you go, okay, so I can see that it was a mistake, but it's just a mistake. I can let it go. I can change my mind. I'm not punished. This is about guilt, right? I'm not punished for my mistakes. I just need to correct them. Well, that sounds really, really simple, but it's a massive shift in our awareness, in our mind when we do that. Okay, so I don't deserve punishment. I'm not guilty. I'm just going to correct my mistake and get on with it. And there's no guilt attached to the mistake. Sounds really straightforward and simple and like, okay, well, that should be obvious and common sense. But how many people do that? Very few. We punish ourselves, we flagellate, we go, oh, why did you do that, you idiot? And some people dwell on this stuff for years. Why did I do that? And they hold a grievance essentially against themselves and they crucify themselves for years. 25 years later, I once had dinner with a lady, 25 years on, and she's still beating herself up over her failed marriage. Why did my husband leave? Was it my fault? Oh, oh, poor me, I'm such a victim. Why did he do this to me? And on it goes. So just say, okay, well, just correct it and let it go. You don't have to live with this for any longer than you need to. Suffering is necessary until you realize it's not necessary. It's that simple. When you're willing to let it go, then you don't need to suffer anymore. I tried to tell her this actually at a dinner party, and it was a disaster. Don't ever do that. It was like wrong context. Deborah was like, "Don't do that. That was totally wrong." It wasn't about trying to heal her or correct the error, but I was just trying to help, but it was inappropriate. The timing
Mm.
was totally wrong. So um, you gotta time these things. And also when someone's ready, she wasn't ready to hear that. So it would have been better if I just heard it and went, okay, I can see what's going on, but I'm not actually in a position to help because she's not ready to listen. It's the wrong context. I'm just actually gonna offend people. But we all do this as course students when you start. Oh, I'm just gonna tell people the truth. And I'm gonna wade in there like a bull in a china shop because the truth is the truth. And Ken Wapnick would say, well, there's people who'd go to people on their deathbed or they're really sick and say, look, you're just deluded, man. This sickness isn't real. Just get up. And the person's like looking at them like you're the most insensitive person ever in the world. What are you telling me? I'm like in a hospital bed, really sick, maybe even dying, and you're telling me it's all a delusion and I've just got to get up. Like, you know what I mean? It's not appropriate. So one has to have a bit of discernment about how you apply this. Anyway, um, let's move on. So when you fail to comply with the requirements of this course, next one, we're nearly at the end of this little section on really he's as I said, he's giving us some coaching on how to actually practice in this lesson, rather than theory about the lesson. Okay, so Elaine, if you can read number 9 in the alternative kindly.
When I fail to comply with the requirements of this course, I have merely made a mistake. This calls for correction and for nothing else. To allow a mistake to continue is to make additional mistakes based on the first and reinforcing it. It is this process that I must let go of, or it is just another way in which I try to defend illusions against the truth. So it's just saying when we don't comply with the requirements of the course, then it's
Just as an error, it's a mistake.
yeah,
That's all.
yeah.
So no need for punishment and self-flagellation. I'm such a bad person or bad course student, and I'm never going to get this. That's just another story the ego makes up. So okay, so I made a mistake. I'll just correct it. It's so simple. This course is just marvelously simple.
Mhm. Yeah.
It just cuts through all of the complexity of the ego. It just says it's actually really just so simple.
Mm.
Just correct it. It's just a mistake. You correct the mistake. No drama, no fuss. You don't have to feel guilty. You don't have to punish yourself or anyone else. Just let it go. Correct the mistake and don't make the mistake again. If you make it again, just resolve to correct it. It's that simple. Just keep doing that and you can't fail to awaken. To allow a mistake to continue is to make additional mistakes based on the first and reinforcing it, right? So you make a mistake and then you allow that to continue, and then you're making another mistake, and mistake leads to mistake, and you compound that. And if you carry on that way, you're just on a mistaken path. Everything becomes a mistake. You're living then in the upside down world of the ego. You're living backwards, which is evil, and that's going to cause you a lot of pain and suffering because it's not in alignment with truth. Just this process that I must let go of was just another way in which I try to defend illusions against the truth. So again, he's saying, got to be very honest. Really, when you're doing this and you fail to correct a mistake, you're defending illusions against the truth because you still want the illusion, because you still want your separate self, because you're still choosing suffering over the peace of God that surpasses all understanding. And it's just reminding ourselves in that moment of decision that this is what I'm doing. Again, I'm doing it again. Okay, don't do it. It's stupid. Stop doing it. Stop beating your head against a brick wall, bleeding, suffering, and then you blame the wall. You say, it's life doing it to me. No, you're doing it to yourself by these stupid decisions. This is what he's trying to teach us. Okay, and Kim, I let all these errors go.
I let all these errors go.
In fact, I think read this one in the original and the alternative. So you read the original, it's a bit to translate here, and then Elaine, you read the alternative, sentence by sentence.
Let all these errors go by recognizing them for what they are.
I let all these errors go for recognizing them for what they are.
They are attempts to keep you aware you are one self, united with your Creator, at one with every aspect of creation.
I will let all these errors go by recognizing them for what they are.
Yeah, you've just done that, Elaine.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Attempts to keep me, and I think both you're getting tired. So maybe we'll go into meditation soon. Kim, you missed out and limitless in power and in peace. But never mind,
Oh,
Elaine.
okay.
But
Okay,
yeah.
number 2.
No, number 2.
Yeah, they are attempts to keep me unaware I am one self united with my source, at one with every aspect of extension and limitless in power and in peace.
Okay. And number 3.
This is the truth, and nothing else is true.
This is the truth and nothing else is true.
Today we will affirm this truth again and try to reach the place in you in which there is no doubt that only this is true.
Today I will affirm this truth again and try to reach this place in me in which there is no doubt that only this is true. And from the top, I will let all these errors go by recognizing them for what they are. They are attempts to keep me unaware I am one self united with my source, at one with every aspect of extension and limitless in power and peace. This is the truth and nothing else is true. I will affirm this truth again today and try to reach the state within my mind in which there is no doubt that only this is true. So we're just going to let our errors be recognized, and we will attempt to keep them unaware. No, they are attempts to keep us unaware.
Yeah. So these errors are just the defenses of the ego. They're designed to keep you unaware of this one self that's united with your source, which is the ego's only objective, right? You can't be aware of the one self and your source and also be aware of the ego because they contradict each other. So it has to keep you unaware of your one self and its source in order to maintain its existence. And it does that by getting you to make these errors. So our job is to recognize the errors as they arise and just let them go and say, this is just a mistake. It's just an error and I can let it go. I don't have to believe this. I don't have to play this out. I certainly don't have to act on it. If forgiveness waits and watches and judges not. It just looks at it and says, I don't have to react to these things. I can just let them go. And as I practice and I affirm this truth, I will reach a place or state within my mind, as I've translated it, in which there is no doubt that only this is true. So I start to come to an experience of the truth, that I am one self united with my source. This is the only truth and nothing else is true. Everything else that I have believed, could believe, will believe is a delusion. It's not true. Only this is the truth. Because you can't contradict the truth and then still have the truth be true. You see, this is the problem. As soon as you contradict the truth, you've made the truth into a lie. You've now got something else that contradicts the truth that seems to be true. So that's duality. When you're in the contradiction, you're in duality. When you hold to the truth and you say there is no contradiction, the truth is true and only the truth is true, that's a non-dual statement. That takes you back into this awareness. Pure formless awareness of perfect love. Top level awareness takes you back here. That's non-duality. Anything here, if you believe in this, then your mind is split. You're in duality. You believe in the opposite of truth, but you can't ever fully deny the truth. So there's still that going on in your mind, but now you have something else that totally contradicts it going on in your mind. So you're in duality. Of course, the duality then gets projected out, and that split then infuses the entire illusory world and universe. And you get all these impossible things happening because of the split going on in your mind. And that's why it is an insane dream in a crazy world, and why it'll never make sense, and why it's an impossible dream. Okay, so any thoughts, comments, or questions on any of that? It's quite useful just to understand how we should practice this. He's giving us a little motivational talk here, saying, right, you're like a good coach. You got to train harder. You've got to, be more diligent about your practice. Because if you don't, then the consequences are this: the ego is still going to be in charge. You're not going to get to the level you want to, and there are consequences to that. Just like any good coach, a sports coach or whatever would say, right, you guys aren't, you're not practicing properly. So I need to give you a pep talk and motivate you to practice properly, so that you prepare yourself properly for the game, which when stressful moments come in the game, you'll have practiced so that you now know how to do the move in the game instinctively. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
We're practicing, training ourselves so that in the game of life, when we get tested, we're ready. And we've got that practice to help us out and make sure we don't make the errors. We don't carry on making the errors and reinforcing them. Okay, so
Mm.
shall we do a bit of meditation on this to end the session? It's now
Yeah,
after, so I'll keep it after 11 your time. So I'll keep it quite brief. Let's do a 15-minute
yeah,
med.
thanks, Donna. I'm struggling a bit here.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So the rest of it, I'll do it in a meditation. So just
Mm.
listen to my voice, listen to me taking you through this, and repeat these ideas to yourself, right? Because they're very powerful affirmations of the truth. All right, so this is a meditation on lesson 95. I'm oneself united with my creator or source. So just sitting comfortably in your favorite meditation posture. Cup your hands in your lap, close your eyes. Take a nice deep breath in through the nose. Breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises, subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. And just give your mind this assurance. I am one self. Repeat these words in your mind after me. You can say them aloud if you want. or just in your head. I am one self, united with my source, at one with every aspect of extension. Original is every aspect of creation, and limitless in power and peace. So breathe in and just breathe all of this in. The limitless power and peace that it's pointing to, the source that is the source of the limitless power and peace. Recognizing that every aspect of this world is this. What underlies every aspect of extension is this limitless power and peace, no matter what the appearance of it is. It is still infused with the one self, with your source, and it's limitless. And now just let these ideas sink into your mind. Just say, I am one self. Repeat that several times. Again, aloud if you want, as an affirmation, say, I am one self. I am one self. Say that a few times, just to yourself. I am one self. And let the idea sink into your mind. Let it take you into the awareness it points to. So you actually experience it for a few moments of silence. So repeat these words to yourself. As I say them, just say them again out loud as affirmations or in your mind as affirmations of this truth. You're reprogramming your mind with the truth. So I am one self. So you breathe in, united and secure in pure formless awareness, joy and peace. Original is light and joy and peace. Light is pure formless awareness, joy and peace. I am one self, united and secure in pure formless awareness, joy and peace. Breathe in again. Say, I'm perfect love's extension. One self, capital self, with one source, capital source, and one goal, which is to bring awareness of this oneness to all minds, so that true being, true creation and the original may extend the allness and the unity of God, or perfect love. Say that again, I am perfect love's extension. One self with one source and one goal. To bring awareness of this oneness to all minds so that true being may extend the allness and the unity of perfect love. Change that to wholeness, 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 same thing. I am one self. As you breathe in again, complete and healed and whole, with power to lift the veil of darkness from the world. The veil of darkness is negative or negative awareness. Whatever negates the truth is negative awareness. So any emotion, any thought that is not perfect love is negative awareness. Power to lift the veil of negative awareness from the world and let the pure formless awareness of perfect love in me come through to teach the world the truth about myself. Capital Self. Breathing in again, saying, I am one self in perfect harmony with all there is and all that there ever will be. I am one self, the pure extension of perfect love, the Holy Son of God in the original, pure extension of perfect love in the alternative, united with your brothers in that self, united with everyone in that self, united with your Father in His will, united with my source in its awareness. I feel this one self in me and let it shine away all my illusions and doubts. This is my true self, the Son of God Himself, the extension of perfect love itself, sinless as its creator, innocent as its source, with His strength within you and His love forever yours. His love, strength within me and forever mine. So say, this is my true self, the extension of perfect love itself, innocent as its source, with love, strength within me and forever mine. I am one self, and I can feel the self within me. Cast all my illusions out of the one mind, the one awareness that is the self, the whole truth, the holy truth or the whole truth in me. Say that again. I am one self, and I can feel the self within me. Cast all my illusions out of the one awareness that is the self, right? So the one mind or the one awareness is at the highest level the self. There is no separation between them. That merging of the self with your ultimate one awareness, true awareness, is the merging of the Son with the Father, the Christ with God, the mystical merging of the Son and the Father, where you become one with the one awareness that is your source, that is the self that you are, the whole truth in you. And then he says, do not forget this today. Everyone needs your help. So you must play your little part in bringing happiness to all the world. And heaven, or the state of pure formless awareness, looks to me in confidence that I will try today. I share its surety, for it is mine. I will be vigilant, and I will not forget today. Okay, so today is almost over, but just apply this to tomorrow. I will not forget tomorrow. I will not forget my goal. I will repeat today's idea as frequently as possible and understand Each time I do so, someone hears the voice of hope, the stirring of the truth within their mind, and the gentle rustling of the wings of peace. So my own acknowledgement, I am oneself united with my source, is a call to everyone to be one with me. Call to all the world to be one with me. So I will be sure to give the promise of today's idea to everyone I meet today and tell them this. You are one self. With me, united with our source in this self, capital self. I honor you because of what I am and what it is, my source. It loves us both as one. So say that again, and then just sink into peace, the experience that this is designed to bring about. Say, think of any person who's caused you any kind of difficulty, any kind of irritation over the last few days, and say, you are one self with me. You're one self with me. United with our source in the self. I honor you because of what I am and what my source is, which loves us both as one. Right? If we are all the same source, we're all the same awareness. There's only one of us here, then this awareness is all of ours, and our unity with that awareness is what we call love. And we are naturally one with our own true awareness. So, amen. So it is. That's what amen means. So it is. Just be still for a minute or two. Just let this idea of the one self sink into your mind at a very, very deep level. So something you just allow to arise in your awareness, sink into it, go deeper and deeper with each breath. Allow this one self to reveal itself to you in the next couple of minutes of deep silence. Any thoughts come up that seem to deny this one self, take you back into believing you're a separate self, just notice those. Breathe into them and say, I am one self, united with my source. There's another person involved, say, you are one self. With me, united with our source in this self. So I honor you because of what I am and what my source is, which loves us both as one. Then just exhale out any sense of being a separate self from this person, just blowing it out, the dream of the breeze of your breath. It's a dream, that's all it is, just images. And a dream, just blow them all away with the breeze of your breath to the nothingness that they really are. And just surrender into this one self. It's your only true reality. Merge with it. Allow it to arise in your mind. Give yourself over fully to the experience of it for the next 2 minutes of deep silence. So just coming back now, very gently into an awareness of your body and the breath. Via that, become aware of the senses and the world. On the count of three, you're going to open your eyes, so breathing in. On the count of one, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Contract the sphincter muscle, lock the energy in, draw the energy up the spine, into your heart center, put one hand on your heart, draw it up into the crown of your head, pausing at the top of the inhale. Scan your mind, notice any thoughts going on. If there's anything that is at all separative, about a separate self, negative, remind yourself that I am one self, united with my source. anyone else involved in the situation is also oneself. So you say to them, you are oneself, united with me and with our source in the self. I honor you because of what I am and what my source is, which loves us both as one. Exhale out on the truth of that, just letting go, blowing away all these negative, dark thoughts. The breeze of your breath into the nothingness they really are. They're going, gone. Pull the stomach into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out. The count of two, notice the weight of your body pressing down into the chair, your feet touching the ground, noticing what you're feeling. Your hands touching, maybe there's a subtle taste in your mouth, a smell in your nose. And just reminding yourself that underneath all these sense perceptions lies the one self, which comes from the one awareness, the one source that you're united with. Self is derived from that awareness, and the more you identify with your true self, the more that awareness arises. And the more you can stay in that awareness, the happier and the more peaceful you can be. So it is said and so it is done. Amen. So now on the count of three, open your eyes. Just take a moment to look around. Just observing various objects in the room around you, but without any judgment, without attachment. Just observe them and just look from one to the other. Noticing that underneath all of them is the one self, the one awareness that underlies all sentient beings, all life, all objects, whether they're animate or inanimate. The one awareness that unites you with your one self. Say one more time as you go around the world. Say to everything you see, you are one self united with me and our source in this self. I honor you, all of it, because of what I am and what my source is, which loves us all as one. That statement, it's in the meditation. Carry that truth with you to bed and on into tomorrow and your weekend. Remind yourself frequently that you are the one self. You're united, therefore, with all other people and animals and plants and all sentient beings. And in fact, everything that you perceive only exists because of your fundamental awareness, the one self. That realization of which this awareness leads to. So that brings us to the end of the meditation and of tonight's session. So thank you, Kim, for joining. Hope you enjoyed that. And I'll see you again next week.
Thanks, Jello. Namaste. Good night.
Okay, sleep well.
Thank
See
you.
you next week.
Bye.
Have a good weekend.
Okay. You too. Thanks. Bye.
Namaste.
Bye.
Okay, so that is a wrap for today. If you watched the live stream and you enjoyed this, why not subscribe to the channel and be notified whenever I go live, which is once or twice a week at the moment, but the plan is to get that up to several times a week. So be notified whenever I go live. You can catch the recordings if you don't catch the live stream. Yeah, and then you can also go to lifepool.com. You can see the spelling of that in the background, and you can subscribe there to the Telegram group, to which I send out some of the stuff that you saw today in the beginning of the session, the daily quote, the comments on it, as well as the daily lesson from the course, and a breath break, short meditation to help you practice the lesson frequently throughout the day. And invitations to join these live sessions, which you can do via Zoom. I'll send you the time and the link every day. So yeah, if you fancy joining one of these sessions and going a bit deeper into the practice, then go to lifepool.com, sign up, and I hope to catch you on the inside of one of these sessions or in the Telegram group soon. Thanks for watching and listening, and namaste. Which means the one self, the one true self in me, acknowledges and honors that same one true self in you, because we are one.